The Dream Within the Book by Elena Loden, Emma.Disarro, and McKnight Welsbacher. Warning, before you go any farther, ask yourself, are you ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. School was finally out for the summer, and it was one that would not be forgotten. Summer Strandberg, a 14-year-old girl living in Franklin, a tiny town in Idaho, was bound to have a summer like any other. This was her last summer before she entered this scary and confusing world of dun-dun-dun high school, and she was going to spend it just like every summer before, in the local public library. Summer was a quiet girl. Most people saw her as different. She didn't have many friends, and she isolated herself from everyone else. It is not that she was not friendly, she just did not fit in with all the other kids. They would go to parties on the weekend while she was on the second level of the library reading a book that most people would throw into the end-of-year bonfire. As the nights got later and the parties got crazier, she would watch as the blue and red lights of the cop cars made their way to the new party house. There would most likely be yet another fight between some overly confident high school boys. She made a promise to herself that if she ever found herself at a party like that, she would most likely have been kidnapped and forced into the situation. As she walked to the library, she counted off all the reasons why she would never go into one of those parties. She was so engrossed with all of the reasons, she almost missed the new shop. Wedged right in between Aunt Polly's Bakery and She Nails was a run-down building by the name of Mr. Linden's Library. Summer had sworn the shop wasn't there the day before. In fact, she can't remember if anything was ever there at all. Summer was so intrigued by the store, she decided she should take a look inside. As she walked to the door, she felt as if there was a magnetic pull pulling her to the store. It started to get stronger as she neared the door, but Summer didn't notice this because she was transfixed by a book in the window. It looked like any other book, but Summer felt that it was different. The title, The Chairs, was written in such a unique font, she could not take her eyes from it. As Summer opened the door, a tiny bell, signaling her entrance, pulled her out of the trance. It took her eyes a minute to adjust to the poorly lit space, but once it did, she saw that the shop was even smaller on the inside than it looked. Even though the shop was tiny, it was packed floor to ceiling with bookcases, packed with books. There were even stacks of books taller than Summer. As she made her way to the back of the store, she started to read some of the book spines and found that she had not heard of most of the stories. Unlike the public library, where she had read all of the books at least 3 times each and can tell you exactly where each book is, she was in a completely new environment. As Summer walked toward the back of the store, she realized it was much darker than the front of the store, and it was still getting darker. She continued walking, reading the book spines that she could see, and finally she reached the back of the store. There was a little more space, open space back there than in the front, but it was still pretty cramped. It was so dark and crowded back there, it took Summer a minute to see the desk in the farthest corner. She did not see the old man sitting in the chair until she was right in front of the desk. He looked as if he blended in with it. The man just sat there, staring right past Summer. "Hello, are you okay?" asked Summer. The old man did not reply. He didn't even stir. Maybe he has bad hearing and didn't hear me, thought Summer. "Hello, sir, do you need help?" spoke Summer a little louder. Still nothing. Summer started to examine the books stacked all around the desk. They encircled the desk and reached at least 6 feet high. The books looked like they were guarding the old man. A few minutes passed before she realized the man was no longer at his desk. This gave Summer an uneasy feeling. She started to look around the stacks of books. As she rounded the 3rd or 4th stack, she nearly jumped out of her skin. Standing there, bent over a book, was the old man. "Hello," said Summer. The old man looked up slowly. Hello there, how may I help you?" replied the old man. That voice sounded so familiar to Summer, but she couldn't place it. "I am here about the book in your window," replied Summer. "What book? There is no book in the window," said the confused old man. "Yes, there is. I saw it when I was walking in. The title is, The Chairs," replied Summer. "I do not know of any book by that title in my store, but if you say it is there, it must be there," commented the man. "Here, I'll show you," Summer told the old man. She started walking towards the front of the building, twisting and turning, trying to avoid the piles of books. She reached the front window in what felt like a much faster time than getting to the back. She picked the book up from the display case on the window and turned it towards the man. "See, this is the book I want," said Summer. "The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. A good choice, but you don't seem to be a Mark Twain fan. You seem like you would be more into Jane Austen," said the old man. Summer turned the book towards her. "Wait, this is not the book that was here before. It was a little wider and seemed much older. I swear, this is not the book that I was looking for," exclaimed Summer. She puts the book back on the display case and started to look around the cramped space, inspecting every book, hoping that she could find it among the hundreds. After circling the room for about the third time, she saw the book, sitting in the corner of the room, opposite from the display window she saw it in. She walked over to the book and tentatively picked it up. It immediately felt different from the other books, and she was afraid to open it and turn the pages because they felt as if they would snap. But at the same time, it was heavy and sturdy. Summer turned towards the old man. "This is the book that I saw in the window. I went to buy it." "I would not advise taking that one. It's much different from the other books." "How about some Jane Austen books that I was talking about earlier?" "I have some of her best," replied the old man, looking wearily at the book. "No, this is the book I came to get, and I will not leave without it," Summer said to the man defiantly. "Fine, but I must warn you, that book is not like any other. It is capable of things ordinary books cannot do. Some would even say it is alive, in a way," cautioned the old man. "Alive? Ha! This is ridiculous. Books don't come alive." "So how much is the book worth?" insisted Summer. The old man looked at her with what can only be explained as a mix of sympathy and regret. $8, said the man begrudgingly. Summer handed over the money. "What is your name?" asked Summer. "I am Mr. Linden." "My name is Summer, and it was very nice to meet you, Mr. Linden. Now I must get home to read this book," Summer said as she walked toward the door with the book in her hand. "Wait, I almost forgot," exclaimed Mr. Linden. He walked toward Summer. "Do not fall asleep reading this book. Before you go to bed, close the book and put it in a drawer or your closet. Just whatever you do, do not leave it open," warned Mr. Linden. "What? Why?" questioned Summer. "Just do as I tell you, or you will regret it," explained Mr. Linden. "Now hurry on home. It is getting late," Mr. Linden says as he leads Summer toward the door. Sure enough, the sun was setting to set in the west, and the sky was strung with clouds the color of cotton candy. Summer must have been in the store for over 3 hours, but it had only felt like she had been there for 20 to 30 minutes. "Okay, thank you," said Summer. But as she turned toward the store, the old man was gone, and the shop was dark. Summer started to walk home and glanced at the display window. Gone was The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and now sitting promptly in its place was Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. Weird, thought Summer, but she thought no more about it and made her way home. Summer walked up the path to her house, just as the moon started to rise on the horizon line and a few stars started to shine through the light of the setting sun. Summer made her way up the stairs to her room at the end of the hall. Her mom was not home. She was working a night shift at the community hospital. Summer's mom had to work 2 jobs just so there could be food on the table and a roof over their heads. They have had a financial problem ever since Summer's dad left, and they still haven't found their groove. He left when Summer was 3, so she doesn't remember him that much, but she remembers a figure that was always there with her mom. She does not know why he left. Her mom never talks about him, but she has always felt it had something to do with her. She knows she shouldn't think something like that, but why else would he leave? Summer opened the door to her room and turned on the lights. She stood there for a second, adjusting to the bright lights. Summer threw her school bag with the book in it over her bed. She made her way to her dresser and pulled out her nightclothes. After changing into pajamas and brushing her teeth, she got under the covers and pulled the book from her bag. Summer sat there for a few minutes, admiring the cover of the book. She turned the cover page, very gingerly, and began being careful not to break the spine, to the table of contents. However, the strange thing was, there was nothing there. The table of contents title was there, but in the middle of the page was a single sentence. "The only contents within this book are the ones you want to see." Summer read this sentence over about 3 times, but each time it made less and less sense. Why would someone write something like that? And why wouldn't a book have only what someone wants to read? It is not like a book can change once it is printed, thought Summer. She turned the page, and this was just as strange as the one before. Once again, a single sentence lay in the middle of an empty page. This one read, "Warning, before you go any farther, ask yourself, are you ready?" This sentence stopped Summer for a moment. Why would someone write something like that, thought Summer. This sentence gave Summer an uneasy feeling, but she hesitantly turned the page to the first chapter. Now this book just keeps getting weirder and weirder, speculated Summer. On the first page, written in the most basic font ever, was, "Be afraid." What kind of book is this? Summer had not even read the first chapter, and she was starting to think that she should have read a little bit about it before she spent $8 on it. Well, it's too late to return it now, and this is the only thing I've got to read, contemplated Summer. So she started to read the book. And as she got to the 3rd or so chapter, she felt like the story was vaguely familiar, but she could not place it. Just like Mr. Linden's voice. Summer was getting tired. It must be at least midnight, and she turned over the book, leaned back into her pillow, and closed her eyes. Mr. Linden's voice echoed through her mind. Before you go to bed, close the book and put it in a drawer or your closet. Just whatever you do, do not leave it open. For some reason, Summer was slightly afraid to disobey what Mr. Linden advised her to do. She sat up and reached for the book. She closed it, shoved it into her nightstand drawer, and turned off her lamp. In the quiet of the house, all you could hear was the distant pounding of some inappropriate music from the summer party and the quiet sound of Summer's breathing. There was something else there. It was faint, but it was different from the usual nighttime sounds. It sounded like the bells that they rung in church during Christmas and Palm Sunday. But Summer just ignored it. It was probably just her mind playing tricks on her from staying up too late. But as the minutes went on, it got louder and louder until she couldn't take it anymore. Summer sat up in her bed and turned on the lamp by her bed. The noise sounded like it was coming from the night table drawer. She hesitantly reached for the knob and slowly pulled it open. Then the ringing suddenly ceased. Sitting in the middle of the drawer was the book, and for some reason, Summer felt like it was calling to her. She reached for the book and opened where she last left off, and she started to read. Page after page, chapter after chapter, the book seemed to get longer with every page turn. Summer couldn't take her eyes from the page. Who knows how long later, Summer started to have a weird sensation coming from her hands. No, it wasn't coming from her hands. It was coming from the book. It started to shake violently and tore itself from Summer's grip. It tumbled out onto the floor and lay there, the pages flipping violently in an unseen wind, and all Summer could do was stare. Suddenly, bright lights started to shine from the book, and things started to come from the pages. All Summer could see were dark shapes shooting out of the books, but she counted 8 dark blobs. The wind was so fast, it caused her to squint her eyes. Just suddenly, as the event started, it abruptly stopped. The book slammed itself shut, and the wind and lights ended. Summer sat there, stunned, jaw slacked, staring at the now still book. She took the shoe from the other side of her bed and threw it at the book. It hit the book and pushed it a few inches, but nothing happened. So Summer slowly got up from her bed and tentatively walked over to it. Still, nothing happened. She knelt down beside it and poked it with her finger, prepared for it to burst open and create another vortex in her room. But it just sat there on the floor, like a normal book. Mr. Linden wasn't kidding when he said this book could do things other books can't. It really is like it is alive, thought Summer, astounded. She picked up the book, stood up, and started turning it around in her hands. The book looked the same as it did before. No burn marks, no torn pages, just a simple book. Summer looked around her room, and it too looked normal. You would never have known that some hybrid windstorm just teared through the room. Summer decided that it was best if she put the book in a room far, far from hers, just like Mr. Linden had warned. She grabbed a shawl from her closet, wrapped the book in the shawl, and took it downstairs. There was a storage closet directly downstairs from her room, and it was never used, so that was the ideal place to store it until morning. As Summer walked down the stairs, she realized that all the lights were off, and as she reached for the light switch, she missed a step. The lights came on and Summer fell the last 2 steps. Sprawled out on the floor, it took her a minute to get her bearings. Nothing was broken, but her ankle had to have been sprained, and the left side of her head was pounding. Ouch, that hurt, thought Summer, as she gets up from the floor, rubbing the left side of her head. A split second later, she remembered the book. Where is it? Oh, I really hope that it doesn't go into another frenzy, worried Summer. She frantically looked around the room and spotted it under the table, still closed in the shawl. Oh, thank goodness, exclaimed Summer as she reached for the book. With her head pounding, her ankle throbbing, and a magic book in her hand, she made her way to the storage closet. Summer opened the door and shoved the book as far back into the closet as she could. And for a good measure, she locked the door. Summer half ran, half limped up the stairs, turning off the lights behind her. She rushed to her room and closed the door, locking it just in case. Not until she was in her bed with her lamp on did she let out a sigh of relief. Well, that was eventful, but it is over now and I can finally get some sleep, thought Summer. But sleep was not an option for Summer. She was too freaked out with what had just happened to even blink, so Summer just lay there silently, staring at the ceiling, waiting for morning to come. But the same peacefulness could not be found in other parts of the world. At a fairground in Italy, the usually joyous and clamorous festival was utterly silent. There were hundreds of people frozen in place, staring at the sky. What they were looking at, you would never believe. There was a chair, and not just any chair. This chair was floating, and it just floated right past hundreds of people going to the east. Where it was going, no one knows. And the weirdest thing was, once the chair was so far away that nobody could see it, everything resumed. The laughing, the talking, and not one person mentioned what they had just saw, as if nothing had happened. It was the most bizarre thing. This was not the only place where floating chairs were spotted. The one in Italy was the first. The second was seen by tourists in Athens, Greece. And they too, after staring silently at the floating chair, went right back to whatever they were doing, as if they were in a trance, telling the child not to climb the statue or posing for a picture in front of the Parthenon. No matter what it was, not one person discussed the floating chair. The third chair was seen in Egypt, near the Sphinx. Only a handful saw this chair. They consisted of 3 men and 3 camels, making their way to a trading post. The men and their camels were the only ones brave/arrogant enough to go through a sandstorm. As the chair floated right in front of the group, the camels immediately stopped, and the men were pulled into the trance. It seemed as if the storm, too, halted for the chair. And then everything went back to reality. The storm howling, the men squinting, and the camels struggling to get to the trading post. Now the fourth chair went to a place opposite of the other chairs. It was seen in Rio de Janeiro. It was not just any day in Rio de Janeiro. It was the first night of Carnival, one of the biggest events in Rio. Thousands of people filled the streets and beaches of Rio. Loud music, laughter, and parade boats all halt to a stop as a chair floats through the confetti and balloon-filled night sky. And just like everywhere else, things resumed. Dancers danced, singers sung, and children laughed all through the night. Now the fifth chair ended up in France. Not just anywhere in France, in a Catholic church. Now this sighting was especially weird. There was not just a chair floating through the church. In the chair was a nun. The poor nun was sitting in her chair, knitting a blanket for a charity market, and suddenly her chair lifted off into the air. No one knows where she or the chair came from, but she was somehow in France. The nun could not remember who she was or where she was, and as the 2 guards, who were also sucked into the trance, watched the chair float through the corridor, they heard the nun say, Adesmoy, help me, help me. And there was no urgency in her tone. She said it in a monotone voice. The guards watched her and the chair float right past them and out the church. Then they continued to patrol the halls. In total, there were 7 chairs. The 6th floating chair encounter was at a market in Russia, and the same events played out just like all the rest. The people were pulled into a trance, and once it was gone, everything went right back to the way it was. The final and 7th chair was seen in Scotland. A man was fishing on a loch, and he was the only person to spot the 7th and final chair. Where were the chairs going? Where did they come from? Did they reach their destination? We do not know, and we may never know. But what is for certain is that this was an event people should never forget. But people did forget, and that was the bizarre part. Now you are probably wondering about the 8th object that came from the book. Well, after all, Summer did see 8 objects shoot out of the book. The 8th object was also a chair, but this one was never mentioned because nobody truly saw it. In a town by the name of Franklin, Idaho, a floating chair made its way up some stairs in a house by a market. The chair turned down the hall to an open door. It went into the room, and in there was a girl sleeping in her bed. The chair started to make its way to the open book on the nightstand, and Summer woke up with a start. She was breathing heavy and drenched with sweat. This was not a dream. It was a nightmare. And Summer could not remember when she had fallen asleep, or what was her imagination and what really happened. But she was terrified. As Summer swung her legs over the side of the bed, her right hand hit something hard under the covers. Oh no, it can't be, thought Summer. She threw the covers back, expecting the worst. But all that was there was her English book. Oh, thank goodness, exclaimed Summer. And as she turned to look out the window behind her headboard, she went white as a sheet. No, screamed Summer. Sitting face open on the bed by the pillow was the book. It's not possible. I locked the closet, she reached for the book. She reached for the spot on her head where she had hid it, but nothing was there. And it did not hurt. She sprung from the bed and rolled her ankle around. It too was okay. Summer checked her clock, 9:30. Mr. Linden's library had to be open at this time. She threw on some shorts, a tank top, slipped on her flip-flops, and grabbed the book. She walked down the stairs to find her mom at the kitchen table drinking a cup of coffee. Hi, sweetie. Sleep well? Asked Summer's mom. Morning, Mom. Yep, good sleep. I gotta run to the bookstore real quick. I'll be back in about 15 minutes, said Summer. Okay, be careful. Love you. Summer's mom was cut off by the front door closing. Summer ran to the bookstore, and by the time she reached it, she was out of breath. In front of the store, Summer was bent over catching her breath, which is why she did not see the sign on the door. Out of business. Summer read this, and for the second time today, was drained of color. This can't be possible. Mr. Linden was only here for one day. His shop couldn't have gone out of business, Summer thought to herself. She looked up to where the sign was yesterday, but it too was gone. A woman was walking by, and Summer decided to ask her if she knew what happened to the shop. "Excuse me, ma'am, do you know what happened to this shop here? It was here yesterday, but now it's gone," questioned Summer. There hasn't been a shop there in over 20 years. You must be confused with somewhere else," replied the woman. "Oh, I must be mixed up. Thank you," lied Summer as the woman walked away. How is this possible, thought Summer. Mr. Linden was a real person. How else would I have gotten the book? I'm not going crazy, right? Perplexed Summer. She decided to take the long way home to think about what had happened yesterday. Summer was so deep in thought, when she crossed the street, she almost got hit by a car, almost crashed into two bicyclists, and ran right into a light pole. She finally reached her house with no more answers than she left with, just more questions. Once again, Summer walked in to see her mom drinking the same cup of coffee. "Hi, Summer. Did you get what you needed from the bookstore?" asked Summer's mom. "Yep, I got everything I needed," lied Summer for the second time today. "I'm really sorry, and I know that today was supposed to be my day off, but the local church needs my help for the afternoon service." "You wouldn't believe what happened," said Summer's mom. "Oh, that's okay, Mom. What happened at the church?" Summer asked as she indicated to the newspaper her mom was reading. Her mom tilted the newspaper toward her. It took Summer a second to comprehend what she was reading, but once she did, she was terrified. At the top of the paper, the main story read, "Local nun missing," and she seemed to have taken her chair with her. "Oh no," screamed Summer in her head. Mom, I got this new book at the store, and I'm dying to read it. So is it okay if I go and read it in my room?" "Great, thanks, love you, have a great day at work," blurted Summer as she kissed her mom on the cheek and took the stairs two at a time. "Okay, love you too, honey," Summer's mom yelled as her daughter raced up the stairs. Summer stopped at her closed bedroom door, too scared to open it. She stood there for a few minutes, staring at the knob, until she worked up the nerve to open it. She flung the door open and closed her eyes, but nothing happened. As she walked in, everything looked the same except for one thing. There was a note on Summer's nightstand that was not there before. She hesitantly reached for it and unfolded the note. The note was written in such a sloppy cursive, as if someone was in a rush, that it took her a minute to read it. But when she did, she wished she hadn't. On a piece of blank lined paper was the note, "I warned you about the book, but now it's too late. Signed, Mr. Linden." "Oh no, what have I done?" questioned Summer. Yes, this is the true question. What had Summer done? Well, we cannot exactly answer that question, because for right now, the story of Summer Strandberg, a 14-year-old girl just trying to have a summer like any other, ends here. So what had Summer done? Well, that is left for you to decide. And choose wisely, my friend, because you never know if it will come true. The end. For now.